Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 97 of the Stomp the Bus Show. I'm your host, Mark Harris, along with our cameraless co host, Colton Dodgson. And we thank you for listening today. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. Follow the College Huddle, the podcast network that we're under. They do great work, tons of Big 12 shows. So Colton, how's it going, man?
You know what, Mark? I might have a camera once you start reshuffling the budget and you find a little room for work
The budget.
computers. Yeah, once you
Yeah.
once you find a little room for work computers, I might be able to get a camera going. But it's good, man. I won't lie to you. I was kind of under the impression that we had a bye week, and then I remembered hard hitting reporting doesn't take any time off. So
Honestly, dude, I kind of have had this whole week has just been kind of not even from the ASU game, honestly, but just in general, just kind of a haze. I'm just so annoyed that the heat is back. For those of you who are out of town listening, it's we had this little stretch where it dipped below 100 degrees. It was nice, and now the high today was 108, 109 Friday.
yeah, man. I was gonna say today was a hot one.
Dude, it's ridiculous, man. Like, and now it's going to be 100 degrees for the whole rest of the week, which on, the Saturday that Kansas comes to town, I guess I'll be out of town for that, but it'll be 100 degrees, so I guess that'll help
Wow, yeah.
in October. Anyway.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I'm heading up to go camping tomorrow, and I'm sure
Oh
it
yeah,
won't be any cooler. I'm sure it'll still be like 80s, which will be
dude, that'll
super
be
nice in a tent.
yeah. Are you going up to Flag or around that area?
It's like if you hit Camp Verde and you just
Okay.
go east, it's like
Okay.
Stoneman Lake area.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope one of our 8 listeners doesn't track me down. I don't like being mobbed as a celebrity. I don't like being mobbed in the forest.
You don't
So
want, yeah. You don't want random people coming up to your tent. Um,
no, that's where I go to escape the
do you have the
forest.
day off tomorrow?
No, we have a fall break next week though, so I'm off for a week. And we have it's like the day before a break is kind of a super mellow day, so I'm just gonna get through the day and then we're gonna drive up there. But I mean, not to detour this too much, but I guess it's supposed to be like a 3.5 hour drive because of the construction and
Oh God.
NAU parent weekend. So we'll see if I survive for another episode. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
not fun.
I don't know if I'll make it through that.
Yeah. Well, what else wasn't fun was ASU's first loss of the season. The Sun Devils fell on the road to Texas Tech 30-22 in a game that it's interesting. As you were watching the game, it didn't really feel like ASU had a chance. Texas Tech scored on the first drive. Levitt throws a pick on the second drive, and that was it. 14-0, you're down like that. But as the game went on, the Sun Devils never really let Texas Tech pull away. Texas
No,
Tech got up 24-10 early in the third quarter, and then from there it was just kind of a like field goals for Texas Tech, and ASU just couldn't really had one touchdown drive and had a few drives that ended in no, they had one touchdown drive and then one touchdown drive that was late when the game was basically decided. But just kind of I don't know. It's a game that ASU made a ton of mistakes in. Um,
yes,
Texas Tech looked like the better team, but not by a lot, right? What
for sure.
what are your thoughts kind of coming out of this game
I think you hit
as
the
it
nail on.
relates to this game?
Yeah, yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head with the beginning of the game. I think my feeling watching the beginning of the game was okay, this is conference play and they look extremely outclassed.
Yeah.
That was my initial sort of like anxiety, right? It was rooted to that thought process of like, okay, we beat up on Texas State. right? And we didn't even really. We won a close one. We won the Mississippi State game. You know, you go down the line, but then you're like, conference play is an entirely different beast. Did we overestimate this team? You know, a typical ASU fan thought process of
Yeah.
like, are
Yeah.
we in for what we're used to? Did we get a little too ahead of ourselves? All of those things. But then you kind of mentioned the self inflicted wounds, right? The penalties and the self inflicted stuff really set them back. And on that second drive, that was like a huge game changer. There was that 3rd and 15 on an unnecessary roughness or something like that. I
Yeah.
know that
It
there was a personal
was,
foul called on that second touchdown drive where
okay. So I'm looking at here. Let me pull up the game log and put it on the screen.
yeah, because ASU is about to get off the field or at least hold Texas Tech to a field
Yeah.
goal.
So
Yeah.
here, let me share the screen. Thank you, ESPN, for your good website for this stuff, but screw you, ESPN, for laying off Zach. You're only like good NBA writer, but whatever.
Hey man, they have to pay McAfee somehow.
It's ridiculous. Just I don't want to get started on that, but
No, McAfee is changing journalism. He's the brightest. He's the brightest mind that's ever
yeah,
graced the airwaves. So he deserves all that he's getting.
I don't even dislike McAfee that much, but it's just like you shouldn't just be like own, like it's more about what he represents,
No,
than
he
but
annoys
he
the
is
shit out
annoying
of me.
though. He is annoying. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
Anyway, let's see. So this is the second Texas Tech touchdown drive because the first one,
right. I'm
the
pretty
first
sure it
one
was the
was
second
annoying.
one.
Yeah. So the first one they just kind of went down the field. Really, it had one 21-yard pass, but it was just kind of it very much looked like a scripted drive. Um, Levitt has a bad-ish pick. I mean, he gets sacked like on the second. First play was unnecessary roughness from ASU on their first drive. So all of a sudden they're in 1st and 22.
Exactly. Yeah,
Scadaboo runs
and
for 4. So now it's 2nd and 18. Levitt gets sacked. Um, and then he throws a pick. It wasn't like an egregious pick because it was worse than the one he threw against Texas State because that was just like a slight overthrow. But it was like on the sideline. It's a pick. It was still bad. So anyway,
the ball
another
definitely sailed on him. I
it did
remember
sail.
watching that the ball that
Yeah,
one really got away from him. That's one of those where it's like I feel like he may have been rolling out or he may have been under a little pressure, but that's one where you can't really blame that on anything else. That ball just got away from him.
yeah,
But
true.
I mean, it kind of like speaking to the trajectory of my thought process watching the game. I went from being like classic ASU
Hmm.
to and when I'm thinking like that, I'm thinking I want to see how they respond. Like I want to see that's what's impressed me the most in the
Yeah,
early going this season, right? Is how are you going to respond? Mississippi State erases that huge lead, and ASU responds with a drive to ice the clock, right? And then you go
right.
to Texas State, they go down on the road 2 scores early. They respond. They tie it up before half, and we know how that game goes. That was the most encouraging sign for me that this foundation is strong. And I think you saw a little bit of it in this game after those 2 scores, right? Because
Yes.
then Texas Tech isn't moving the ball. They're not scoring. And then you're getting some signs of life on offense. This is a 17-10 game, if I'm not mistaken, going into the half, right? It
Which
was
was
17-10.
crazy. In the moment, that
100%.
felt like what? Like
And
there was a part of me that was just like hoping. I would rather ASU be down like 21-3. So it's just like okay, like we're just going to lose this game. But I mean, you know, they weren't
and
obviously.
then right, and you know that based on the feel of the game, that Texas Tech is probably going to come out of half with another drive that puts them in an advantageous position. That's exactly what happened. Game's 24-10, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
And then
there was a few things that happened. I do want to address some plays that The 24-10, that's when it really kind of felt like it was over. But once you got to 24-10, like the way you got there, there were some things that happened that made it so, if that makes sense. So, but yeah, like just kind of finishing your thought, like, what else you have to add? I kind of
I
interrupted
was
there.
just no, it's all good. I was just saying it never really felt like in a game where the first thought was, okay, they're out of this, they're outclassed. This is what the Big 12 is going to be. It didn't really feel like that again until the very end of the game. And even then, you have the perspective of the entire game, right? And you're looking
Yeah,
at, oh, okay, they were down. This could have gotten out of hand, and they kept it close. They battled back. That was impressive. Like they adapted. They made some changes. If they correct, and the next thing is like you recognize that some of those issues were like things that can be corrected, right?
right.
Keep your emotions under in check in those big situations, and that's tough, right? You're in a hostile environment.
Yeah.
Everybody's, you have to play with a chip on your shoulder this season. All of that stuff.
And one of
Sometimes it'll get away from you.
the face mask by Watley, like that wasn't a like dumb play. It was just he was reaching out and his hand literally was just happened to hit like right on the guy's face. Like
Yeah,
that's
and
just
it
one of those that
happens. That's one
that's
of
one of
those
those
that
that deserve.
happens.
Yeah, it happens. It was the correct call. It wasn't like anything like that. But yeah. Anyway,
Right.
continue.
So I mean, it's just one of those things where you look at it and you're like, sure, they lost. You don't want to lose. It's your first Big 12 game on the road against a team that maybe feels like they've underachieved a little bit too.
Yeah,
Maybe they feel like they need to make up some ground. So you're not necessarily getting a passive Texas Tech team. You're
good
not
team.
necessarily you're getting a team that feels like they have something to prove too. And you've got the new team coming in. You're not gonna that's not a game you can lose at home if you're Texas Tech. So it's just it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, they beat themselves. They made things a little difficult for themselves. Texas Tech played a great game. I don't want to say they beat themselves. They made things more difficult on themselves over the course of the game, but also recognizing, it's your first conference game. You're going to get their best shot. All in all, not a completely demoralizing, debilitating loss by any means. And they're 3-1 going into the bye. I don't think either of us picked that.
No. Yeah. So the thing is, like, with Texas Tech, you made a good point that, like, uh, not that they were desperate, but they had something to prove, right? Like,
Right. They'd
because
underachieved
everyone
a little
saw
bit. They
them
started
almost
slow.
lose in week one to the FCS team. They get blown out by Wazoo. Yeah. Yep. But then the reason I picked ASU to lose this game, I had it 38-35 Texas Tech. The game went differently than I expected. But I was just when I saw that they dropped 52 points in the first half against North Texas, I was like, oh, okay. Like, this is kind of more in line with the Texas Tech team that we expected to see.
Right. Maybe they
And
figured it out a little bit.
that, yes, that reason, the fact that, like, I think there were a lot of on paper things that were like, hey, you could win this game, and some of those kind of on paper things actually happened, that I'll get into. But I just was like, okay, you're taking 2 trips to Texas. You won one of the games that was kind of a close game. Are you just going to win another one? Are you just going to go and win 2 games on the road in Texas? No,
Right.
that was kind of my
Yeah,
thought process of it. Like, it's hard to win on the road. We saw that the previous week. I don't think that, like, I think Texas Tech is better than Texas State, but I don't think that, like if Texas Tech was in the exact same spot that ASU was in, the game probably would have been similar. Like, if they were playing at that Thursday night game in San Marcos, you know what I'm saying?
right.
Like, I mean, they would have the Texas State fans would have been even more juiced about that because it's a bigger school in state. But my point is, like,
The
I don't
chasm isn't that wide between
know.
Texas Tech and Texas State, is
And
kind of what
Arizona
you're
State,
saying, right? Right,
and
right.
like all of those teams looked like different levels of like middling Power Five teams. I mean, obviously, Texas State is a lower level below, but they're a conference favorite. Um, so, and then the other thing, I think the thing that people didn't really touch on that much is Texas Tech's running back Taj Brooks. He didn't have some fantastic game, like 4.3 yards a carry, 27 carries, 117 yards. That's not like dominating on the ground. It's solid. And I'm checking this right now as we
I feel like
record.
every time I watched him run, he was situationally, it was kind
Yeah,
of backbreaking. I feel like
he had a
every
big
time he
third
carried the
down.
ball, right, every time he carried
Yeah.
the ball, he was putting them in like 2nd and 6, 3rd and 3,
Yep.
really advantageous positions on the early downs. Which, I mean, if you're getting gashed like that, sure, he had a ton of carries, 4.3. It's not inefficient, right? But it's not like groundbreaking stuff. But those 4.3 yards, I feel like came at times that really put ASU on their heels defensively. So he was tough.
Yeah.
Watching him it was a tough watch because he
No, he was
was he
good.
was putting them where they needed to be.
He was good, and like he didn't because Scadaboo had a really good game, mostly receiving in this game, and
Right,
Scadaboo made
that
some big
broken
splash plays.
tackle. I
That was
right
awesome,
that
man. That was
that
awesome.
play that one was. I don't know what to make of that because I'm trying to gauge ASU's offensive performance, right? And I think you can call it mixed, if not maybe a little
Well,
bit
yeah,
more like left stuff to be desired. But that play is tough to gauge because obviously, I think anytime you're watching this offense, you want to see things that are like designed working, right? I
yeah,
think anytime you see something like that, anytime a design works, you're encouraged because you're on script. That's planned. That's what
yeah.
you're hoping to get, and you're seeing it happen. That Scatterbo play, credit to him, is just incredible effort. He's pushing when everybody else thinks he's out of bounds, and he takes it an extra 20 yards for the touchdown.
It was
But
like
I,
no, it was like 50 yards. He got
was
stopped and then
it
ran it in the next
okay?
play. Yeah, I thought he was going to score on that one play, but
Oh, you're right. Okay,
yeah,
he didn't score on that. He just got it
yep,
down to the one. Okay,
yeah,
details are fuzzy, but either
figured
way,
it out.
the point remains because Texas Tech thinks he's out of bounds, and he makes an awesome effort play, right, and takes him
Yep,
down deep into the red zone. But I didn't see a whole lot working, right? I think that's what was tough to
yeah.
watch throughout that game was like the offense wasn't working the way that we had seen in weeks past, right?
Well,
So
certainly not the run game.
for
And
sure,
Levitt,
and the run game's kind of been stifled a little bit over the last 2 weeks.
yeah,
He's not going to run for Mississippi State numbers, but
right,
it,
right.
it's been it's and he's that kind of running back, a ground and pound sort of like wear people down, physical back, right?
Yep.
But it hasn't been very efficient at all, and that's kind of worried me a little bit. Is it's like 17 carries for 65 yards territory, right? Now, I'm not saying that's the stat line, but that's the type of
Right.
output you've been getting. And obviously, the reception boosts those numbers and the averages and stuff. But for 95% of the game, you're getting those like 2 to 3 yards per carry sort of plays, which it's been a little troublesome because I think that's put a lot on the passing attack. But again, it's early. They're still working it out. That's just kind of a trend that's made me a little nervous.
Well, I totally get that. I guess we got on this thing of Taj Brooks. The reason I brought
Right.
him up is because he didn't play in their loss at Washington State, and so I
Right.
think that probably had some impact on how that game went. I don't think it was like the difference in Texas Tech winning that game, but it does influence how like it happened. Um,
100%.
but yeah, no, it's weird. Like neither team could really run the ball that well. I mean, Texas Tech ran for 3.4 yards a carry, and ASU ran for 3.1 yards a carry. It just wasn't one of those. Like I think the Taj Brooks yardage total is more about just the way Texas Tech was playing the game in the second half, and just more of a measure on their possessions.
Right.
Um,
Right.
But no, in this game, it's weird because the numbers, like some of the passing game stuff, worked out fairly well, um, and I know that Levitt's numbers are kind of inflated by that last drive that was basically garbage time. But you talk about having a play that's like drawn up as opposed to the Scatterboo play. I mean, this is going to kind of lead into what I want to talk about in the time that Texas Tech built its lead. So you are down 17-10 at half. You 3 plays, 4 yards. So you run for 4 yard run, first down, perfect. And then it just says Sam Levitt incomplete. So the first one is he misses the deep shot to Stovall on the sideline. And I was like, well, that sucks. And then this play, it could have honestly been the difference in the game. Like, I know that's a little hyperbolic, but Jake Smith dropped a pass that he lost. Like he was backing up for some
Oh,
reason,
right, right.
and in the moment I was upset at Levitt, but then I was like, okay, like the fact that Smith had it on his hands, he was
And he kind of turns around, like he kind of stops running a little bit
yes, he
too.
was backpedaling,
Yeah,
and I'm not going to call it an excuse. I believe it was the reason that he like lost the ball in the sunlight, which I understand how that would happen, but like that's like something that would happen to me in a pickup game, like
I don't know if you would have been downfield that far. I
yeah,
think you would have been maybe 20 yards off the line of scrimmage
that's
at that
fair.
point.
I am not as
Yeah.
fast as anyone on the field, but you get my point.
No, I get what you're saying.
Like
You have to make the adjustment,
and
100%.
you have to make the catch. I don't care if it's like if it's like one of those 60-yard catches where like it's a little underthrown and like
The
the receiver, like, you
backpedal
still
thing
have
is
to catch
what's
it.
in
I don't it's
its
like yeah.
right. The
And
backpedal thing is like the inexcusable part
yes,
for me.
yes,
Like,
yes,
why are you turning to backpedal? That
yes. And he's like 23 years old too. Like that's the other thing. Like
right.
these receivers, which I don't think like this has been a huge issue, but it was a little bit at the end of the Texas State game where like Stovall dropped the pass that was a bit low from Levitt on that third down, didn't end up mattering. But like you guys practice with Levitt all the time. And the thing that's clear with Levitt is like he does a lot of things well. I don't really have any big issues with him in what he's done so far. But like his biggest weakness is he has some inaccuracy issues. It's just clear. So if you get a ball that is like pretty good, maybe it's not a dropped in a bucket and in stride for a 60-yard touchdown, like that would be great, and hopefully Levitt can do that more consistently. But if you have a catchable ball, you have to catch it on third down in a game crucial play. So I don't want to like focus in too much on that play, but like that was a play that could have been made, should have been made.
100%. Yeah.
So that's
But that's the thing, man. There was missed opportunities like that. We
for
talked about the
sure.
penalties quite a bit, and it's early in the season, right? Like that
Yeah.
stuff. You're gonna see stuff like that. Like we've gotten so caught up in the 3-1 start, and I mean with good reason. Like it's been a while since this fan base has had something to be excited about, right?
Yeah.
So 100% you can get excited and caught up, but you also need to be cognizant of the fact that there are still steps being taken, right? There
Yes.
are still strides being made. There might be some growing pains here and there, right? There's a lot of new pieces.
Yep.
There's a lot of new elements of what is happening here, right? So something like that, I mean, obviously watching it from the couch is you get the hindsight of not being out there, or not the hindsight, but the perspective of not
Yeah.
being out there. Um, so I don't want to speak on it too much. It almost looked like he was trying to return a punt, and I've never seen that before. I don't understand the thought process of the backpedal, but again, we talked about what this game kind of was, and you made a great point of like you have to go back back and forth from Texas for 2 straight weeks and play 2 straight road games coming into the season. If you're going to tell me you'll split those
Yep.
games and you're not going to look outmatched the game may have started in a way that made ASU look a little outmatched against Texas Tech. I don't think it ended that way,
No, definitely not.
but
Well, and by the way, in both of those games, you were down by 14 points at one point in the first half.
right, you
And you
win
won.
one and you make another competitive,
Yep.
right? Which
Yep.
is, I mean, if you're going to tell me that's what's going to happen on that Texas road trip, which was always a weird scheduling thing, especially
Yeah.
with the short week in the mix too. That was a tough win, right? That win right there, I think, says a lot about this team. I'm not going to look at this Texas Tech thing as too much of an indictment on what they're doing. Any number of factors could have contributed, right? So split the Texas trip, get into the bye week, get a little more healthy too. I know some
Yep.
guys are starting to come back, but get some more guys some rest and get them ready to contribute and play a Kansas team that is kind of reeling right now, right? 1-3 is not what
Well,
anybody expected of
yeah.
Kansas with their only win coming against Lindenwood. So, um,
I hope that Kansas beats TCU this weekend because I just don't like facing teams that are like super backs up against the wall,
100%. And
Because if Kansas
that's what you got with Texas Tech, I think.
kind of, and Kansas will be even more so if they lose to TCU, which they could. TCU, I kind of wish we were playing TCU this year because they can't stop the run. I wish we were playing TCU, and I wish we were playing Houston. It really sucks that we don't get Houston this year.
Yeah, man. I mean, that Kansas State game, though, I'm not saying Kansas State, because they lost that game to BYU, now looks bad or anything like that.
They're
College
more
football, you're going to have,
vulnerable
but they're more
than
vulnerable. Exactly. They're more vulnerable than we thought. And honestly, man, his name escapes me, their quarterback. The
Avery
kid,
Johnson.
yeah, the kid who drives the purple convertible or Corvette or whatever.
Dude, he's not a good thrower.
I have not. I watched the U of A game. Admittedly, didn't watch the BYU game. I was up in Prescott.
Well,
Um,
the BYU game. So BYU had two non-offensive touchdowns. I think that They had like 240 yards of total offense. They had like a bunch of short scoring drives, a bunch of turnovers. It was like BYU. It was one of those games where like the score was not really reflective of how it played out on like a down to down basis, if you get my point. But like
yeah,
it's Kansas State still gave them the opportunity to do that, right? So I get what you're saying.
yeah. I'm just pointing out. I think Kansas State. I remember when we were doing our little preliminary go through the schedule and
Yeah,
predict the record stuff. We both were kind of in agreement that Kansas State game does not seem like one that they have any shot at winning. But I don't know, man. I haven't been super impressed with what they're doing. I'm just thinking about this schedule and
dude, Oklahoma State. That is like it's weird. Like the Cincinnati game looks much more difficult on the road, but the Oklahoma
right.
State,
And we knew that was going to happen. Teams were going
yeah,
to rise, teams were going to fall. Like we knew that was going to happen. Probably if we broke it all down and we looked at who was rising, who was falling, we're probably looking at a net neutral when it's all said and done, right?
yep, yep.
So again, they're at 3 wins. They need to get 3 more to make a bowl game. I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility.
It seems doable. If you
It seems doable.
if you're an ASU fan who watched that game all the way through, and your thought coming out of that as ASU leaves that game as a 3-1 team is like, oh, we're screwed in the Big 12. Like I did not get that thought from that game.
No, me
I thought
neither.
like honestly, dude, like of all of the ASU teams that we have watched and paid attention to, do any of them win a game like at Texas Tech in that spot? You're 3-0. Like I don't know if any like even our freshman year, maybe that team does because that 9-3 team was a little better. But like I don't think any of the
Um,
words like teams would win this. No, the late Todd Graham era teams wouldn't win this game, right?
no,
So
no.
like
I would say the cutoff for teams that would be competitive in that situation was probably. I mean, our freshman year team is the best team, or maybe it
yeah,
wasn't our freshman, our sophomore.
no freshman,
Oh, it
freshman
was freshman. Okay,
because the
freshman was
best
the year they lost to UCLA big, and then or not UCLA, but USC.
No, UCLA
No,
because they beat USC with the Jail Mary.
you're right. Okay, I mixed up my years. But anyway, point being, I think you're right. Like that freshman year team, and which would have been for, I mean, the viewers don't know when we were, or the listeners don't know when we were
2014.
freshmen. 2014,
2014
right.
team that was ranked
Um,
sixth in the country at one point. Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I get the point that you're making. This and that point's going to carry forward through the rest of the year too. Like this is a team that we should feel pretty confident in, and at least I don't expect to see them get blown out the way
The
we saw
defense
them
is too
blown out
good.
last year.
The
No,
defense
I
is
I
too good.
completely agree. I
Like,
completely agree.
yeah, ASU
I
held let's go to the I think ASU outgained Texas Tech. And again, that doesn't tell the whole story of the game. I'm not trying neither of us are trying to say like, oh, ASU was actually better, like no. But when you
no,
outgain a team by 42 yards,
it's
that's
it's a it's a loss
notable.
that it's a loss that should have been a loss, right? Like
Yes.
it's a
Yes.
loss that you're not going to go into the game thinking like if we win this, it's catastrophic. A win would have been a nice little bonus, but
Yes.
that was
Yes.
that game never felt like it was going to be a win, which is fine. They need to get 3 more wins. I mean,
Yes.
7-5 isn't out of the question, right? Like they've set
No.
themselves up in the non-con for a really
Yes.
good end to the year. So, I
Yes.
mean, you could be an average team the rest of the way, maybe even a game below average, right? And
Yeah.
still will reflect on this season as if it was a success. So,
Yes. Like this oh yeah. No, keep going, sorry.
no, I was done. I don't know. There might be a
Oh.
little delay on my end because I was completely finished. So you're
Okay.
good.
No, what I was about to say is like this loss would be extremely frustrating if ASU was clearly the more talented team. And, like this was an ASU team that like had real legitimate expectations of competing for a conference championship. You're expecting to go like 9-3 at least, right? Like this would be a much more frustrating loss.
Right.
But that's not the case. It's just not. I've seen a few people on social media like, "Oh, why is 6 wins the bar?" It's like,
It's all
well,
about perspective.
yes,
Perspective is the key here, man. You
it's
can't you can't lose track of where we're at in this process.
yes, it's perspective and just like every year for a school like ASU, the expectations are not the same every year. Depends who's coming on the rock. Like we have a freaking essentially a freshman quarterback,
Right.
and like it's not like this roster is more talented than it was last year, but it's not
Hmm.
like ASU's gonna have 8 guys drafted. Like
Right.
let's just have some common sense. And again, I want to go through because ASU, one of the reasons this game from like a total yard standpoint, stuff like that is more lopsided than people think is because ASU, where's fourth down? Well, yeah, 0-3 on fourth down. Like, if
Yeah.
you go 0-3 on fourth down on the road against a team that's about as, like, give or take as good as you are, Texas Tech maybe a little bit better, but not, again, we watched the game. It's not like a lot. You get downs right here on your second drive of the game. Let's just say you convert this. I'm not even upset at Dillingham for not kicking a field goal here, honestly. Like, you're at 4th and 1, like I know some fans are I don't think them kicking the field goal there or not had any real impact on the game. So,
Right. And you
and
don't want, I mean, Dillingham is who he is, right?
yes,
You don't ever want him to, I don't know. You
turtle
want to, and I
shell.
mean as an Eagles fan, you kind of see the downside of it. Like you want a coach to be who they are, but also like play within the game, right? And you want Dillingham to be able to in that position, right? A 4th and 1, you trust your running game, you trust
Yeah,
that's the type of stuff that's gotten you to where you are, that sort of thing. Like you have to stick with that. But if it's if you're on an opposing 30-yard line with 13 seconds left and a half and you're down 3-0 and you don't kick a field goal,
right.
you're pretty stupid.
I don't think he would do. I mean,
So no,
yeah.
I
Well,
was
we
just
saw that.
throwing some shade at Sirianni. I had to.
Yeah. Well, we saw in the game against Texas State again, like they were down at like I think there was like 1 or 2 yards to go, and like it was within the 10 yard line, tied 28 all, and there was probably some analytical case of like, maybe you go for it there. Billy's like, no, I'm just taking the field goal. We're taking the
Right,
lead, and it
right.
worked out.
You
So
have to consider obviously like analytics are a part of the game now, and they have led to more aggressive offensive
yeah,
philosophies, which is great. But I think the best realm to sort of operate in is considering those analytics and holding those analytics up against the lens of the game,
yep, totally,
and considering what the best option is with wherever you're at in that specific game, right? It's analytics aren't considering game flow and things like
yes,
that. So I think that's important. But, 4th and 1 in a game like that, I don't think field goals are going to help you too much, especially with what we saw from the Texas Tech offense after halftime. The ASU defense deserves so much credit, and they're going to deserve. We're going to say this so often this season that unit is going to keep them in a lot of games. That's a
yep,
very talented defense. They deserve a ton of credit for stopping the bleeding early in this game, because if they don't, we have a completely different feeling. It's not
oh
like
yeah.
okay, this is a scheduling loss. This is okay, was this sort of a mirage, right? Was this fool's gold? But I don't think it is, and that's because of the defense.
I agree. No, for sure. And again, like it kept. I want to go through some of these, a few more just instances of fourth downs, because the next two I'm about to talk about that ASU didn't get, I think these were interesting in their own right, beyond just like not getting it on 4th and 1 with Scadaboo. So Levitt completes. This is after Texas Tech's touchdown. We're into the midway through the third quarter. First pass to Guillory goes for 14 yards. Eventually, ASU gets it to 4th and 1 at their own 48, and the stat sheet says Sam Levitt run for no gain. What it was, that like uh, they had Scadaboo run out in the flat, and a lot of people were upset at Marcus Arroyo for this play call. This was just Sam Levitt not executing it well enough. Like he didn't throw it to Scadaboo earlier enough in the flat, and then the guys got to him and it was over. So again, and they were down 24-10. I don't blame them for going for it there either.
Right.
And again, look at like we're talking about, they just forced a punt. Like Taj Brooks 1 yard run, Morton incomplete pass, Morton incomplete pass, and then you get a punt for a touchback. You get a quick 80-yard touchdown drive. You get a freaking field goal, extra point blocked, but you're in the game, right? And then it's just field goals and this punt, two incomplete passes from Levitt. Like that was a bad series from Levitt. And then you get the downs late in the fourth quarter. They get it all the way down to the TCU 32, 4th and 9. Levitt throws it to the sidelines, and in the moment, it looked like kind of just a more standard incomplete pass. Ralph Amsden showed the play on social media, and like whoever it was, I think it was Malik McLean, was getting interfered with. Like it was a missed call. Now, again, that's not the only reason. Like it's just one part of the game, but like that was a clear thing. So the whole point of this is like ASU had drops, ASU had just blown throws by Sam Levitt, ASU. Their special teams was not great in this game at all. You had a few kicks out of bounds. Like, what are we doing? That's the biggest big picture thing I take away is like the special teams hasn't been great under Dillingham, and it's a good thing we have Canyon Floyd instead of the rotating punters we had last year. I think
Right.
Hurt's been okay. I think he's been fine for college kicker standards. But why are kickoffs going out of bounds? That bothers the living shit out of me. It's so avoidable.
Yeah, that was a weird thing on Saturday. I
It happened
remember
twice.
it happened across college football Saturday, and maybe that's a little hyperbolic. I'm more referring. I guess I was watching Ohio State. I was trying to remember what game it was. It was Ohio State, and they had to bench their kicker because I want to say 3 or 4 kicks went out of bounds, and
Yeah.
I saw the same thing in ASU and in the ASU game. I don't know. It was a weird thing across college football that I saw multiple times. But you're absolutely right. Like, granted, I've never place kicked before, but I can't imagine if that's something that you practice over and over and over and over again, that part is overly difficult.
I mean, we watch football like all the
So,
time, college and pro. Like you just don't see it like that. It's pretty rare, you know. It so it's just yeah. But I guess I think we've kind of both settled on this game as like this was a subpar performance from ASU.
yeah,
It
not great.
They kind of hung around the whole game because they're like they made enough plays on offense. I thought this was arguably Xavier Guillory's best game as a Sun Devil. Um, I thought he played. I mean, 6 catches for 74 yards. Like you'll take that. He played pretty well. Scattaboo, like yeah, he wasn't getting it going on the ground, but to leave a game with 6 catches for 117 yards, like you'll
Yeah.
take that.
And
Um,
he's going to impact the game in so many different ways. Like
he's awesome, man. Yeah,
he's the engine of that offense. So
for sure.
just because I've mentioned like the efficiency is kind of worrisome, without him, I don't know where they'd be. So it's more of just a nitpick thing, but I just don't want that little dent in the windshield to start to splinter more and more and more and cause more problems across the offense. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. You know,
So
it's a good time. It's a good thing to have the bye week this week. This feels like a good time for a reset, regroup. Let's kind of go back to keep improving on the plays in our playbook that we do well and kind of throw some stuff out. Uh, so, yeah, I don't really feel the only big picture takeaway I have from this game, well, I guess two, is like this is just kind of who I don't want to say who Levitt's going to be, but like his inaccuracy is just something that is going to be present this year. And
yeah,
I don't think that. By the way, I don't think that the game that he had against Texas Tech was his worst game. I think it was. I think he was worse in the Mississippi State game, honestly, because he missed more throws in that game, in my opinion. And anyway, um,
yeah,
it
for
didn't
sure.
matter as much, but
Yeah, I think he looked really solid in that Texas State game. There was a bit of a regression against Tech, but
yeah.
again, man, I think you mentioned the bye week, and I think the bye week is extremely important too with evaluating where they're at offensively and going from there.
Well, and think about like we have to remember Sam Levitt is 19 years old.
Right.
Like it's
Yeah.
got like just to say that out loud and like it's for someone that age, like if you're just going through 2 weeks of practice, there's a chance that you just get like exponentially better in that time frame. Like sometimes that does really happen in the midst of a season for a young player like that, you know. So and we saw that with the Texas State game, like they needed him to be really good that game, and he was, and it worked out. But I want to. Oh, and I guess the other big picture takeaway I have from this game is just like the special teams is not like I don't trust the special teams. I guess is the way to put it. And they're like it's weird though. Like I don't like Floyd. I think's done a good job as a punter, and like
Yeah.
Hershey has been solid. I mean, he's been pretty good. Like, but even still, like the other special team stuff, like the kickoff stuff, I don't want to ever think about kickoffs. You know, like I shouldn't. That should be so far down the list of potential concerns for any football team. So
Yeah.
that's
And
big.
hopefully it was just an outlier. That seems like something that could be corrected pretty quickly.
Well, it better be corrected.
Um,
I mean,
yeah,
whoever
it
special
has to
teams
be.
coach, like
It's
that's
important,
your
but
job.
it's one of the smaller elements of the game, right, that could make a huge impact. But
Yes,
in terms of your job is like it's pretty straightforward.
the
Kick the ball
Patriots literally.
straight.
I don't want to say they got
Like,
gifted a Super Bowl because of it, but like a kick out of bounds was a big factor in them winning one
you
of their Super
you
Bowls.
have to
Like
do you have to do the intricate things well. You
yes,
have to do them well, and hopefully, I think Dillingham is a guy who believes that too, and
oh for sure.
hopefully that's addressed in the bye week.
No, yeah, it's not like an issue with the whole team, right? Like I think this team has been there were some bad penalties in this past game, but overall, like you don't penalties haven't really been that noticeable, and like I feel like this team is pretty good on the details and stuff like that, and so that yeah, it's not a team wide thing. It's just like man, like this, I'd really love to just not think about a kick going out of bounds. So uh,
Right.
anyway,
You're kind of
talk about
asking
that
for a
game. I
lot.
do want to show one interesting graphic from our friend, well, not a potential friend, I guess. Parker Fleming on Twitter. He does the "Did we really get beat that bad?" Uh, graphic based off net success rates.
Did you just assume
And
he'd want to be friends with us?
well, I mean, he is a college football sicko, so we have that in common.
Okay.
But ASU, according to this graph, according to his stats, according to that, like ASU was better, and that shows up in um, the total yards, right? Like again, it's not like a like BYU won by 29 points, and under this, graphic, they kind of got lucky to win, but it's just kind of showing to me that like okay, like
You're
I
not
don't
outclassed.
no, we're not
Yeah.
outmatched, outclassed, anything like that, and that's a step up. Like let's be honest, like there were a lot of games last year where ASU was outclassed,
Yep.
and but again, but the hope was like there were a handful of games where they were not outclassed and they lost for other reasons, and so it's better to be on that side, I guess. And again, when you're a team like ASU and the expectations are just like just get back to normal, So uh, looks like we mostly don't have any. Neither of us are freaking out based off this game.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Now, if ASU loses to Kansas, I will be. Then my mind shift on this season is different
This
because
is one, I think this is a game you have to get if
Utah's
you're going
next,
to, right. This is a
and
game you have to get if you're going to reach that, okay, we took a big step forward
yes,
point this season. If
yes,
you don't get this one, and who knows, man, they could get games that we didn't expect them to get, but
for sure.
this feels like one that you can't drop if you're going to take that next step and you're going to continue building that foundation. So,
Because you don't want, yeah, exactly. Because it's because that Utah's up next,
right,
and they looked, they're more vulnerable without Rising, but again, that's like 3 weeks from now or whatever it is. So like, there's a better chance that he plays, and Utah just clearly looks like the best team in the Big 12, you know. So it's just you don't want to turn a 3-0 start into a 3-3 start when
definitely.
could have
How
easily.
old how old is Rising? Is he in
But
Brandon Whedon territory yet?
no, Brandon Whedon was 28 years old when he
Yeah.
was like that. But again, yeah, he's 25. He was born in
Oh my
1999.
25.
He's
That's
more
unreal.
he is more in common with like you and I, like in terms of like culturally stuff. Like he would have been probably at high school at the same time as us. And
How old
some
is
of his own
Justin Herbert?
teammates. Herbert, I think he just turned 25.
That's
Well, and the
unreal.
Oklahoma State quarterback is super old too, Alan Bowman. No, he's Herbert's 26. He just turned 26.
Okay, so Rising is a year younger than Herbert, and Herbert has been in the NFL since
Yeah.
2020.
Alan Bowman on Oklahoma State is 24 years old. He's been in college football forever. I mean, like, good for these guys. Like, it's not like, you know, the NFL is just banging down their doors. Otherwise, they would be in the NFL, right? So
No, I mean, and you have to be somewhat decent to stick around as long as they
that
have.
is true.
So
Yeah. Yeah. That is also true. Uh, yeah. So, no, but anyway, like, I feel like ASU, I don't know. They're kind of just in the middle. They're just among the other okay Big 12 teams, Like
which
it
is
feels
better
like
than we thought, and that's better than every pundit thought too.
yes, it's a bell curve. Houston is at the bottom. Like they are clearly everything about the Houston season has been like, yeah, this is the worst team in the Big 12. And Utah just that was a statement win at Oklahoma State. They were up. The final score was 22-19, but they were up 22-3, like with 6 minutes left in the game. It's just a dominant win. So that's and you've mentioned that like that's playing out that like hey like you don't know what team's going to show up each week like all none of very like these teams are similar enough that like it only takes one bounce of the ball right to change the game and so that's what's encouraging about these next games even though the Kansas game is still just very important. There's no getting around that and thankfully you have uh extra time to prepare for it too, which is
Right.
crucial. All right, let's get into some other stuff. I'm just scrolling my Twitter or and then another thing. So Bill Conley, he does post game win expectancy. He gave ASU like Texas Tech had a 38% chance to win that game based on his numbers. So again, it's encouraging-ish. It's not really encouraging because you still lost, but it is at least it does show that like the bones of this team are not fake, if that makes sense.
For sure. The infrastructure is in place to be competitive. And even in games like that, like, again, my biggest takeaway, and this is what I kind of led with, was when in years past, in those games where it looks like they're about to crumble, like teams in years past would have absolutely crumbled in this Texas Tech game when
Yes.
they went down
Yes.
14-0. This team battled back and made it a 17-10 game at half, right? They held that team that scored on both of their drives, both of their first two drives, to a field goal the rest of the way. So
Yep.
that's the stuff that stands out. They lost the game. That's ultimately what, the record's going to show, but a lot to be encouraged about, I think,
Yep.
given how it started and how it ended.
Yep. And again, a lot of it's just going 0 for 3 on third down, right? Like those
On fourth? Do you mean on fourth?
fourth down. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those are
Yeah.
huge swing plays, So
100%. You pick one of those up, who knows where we're at.
yeah. Oh, and then here's the here's the miss PI. Holy. Okay, let's. Yeah, I mean he was grabbing his freaking neck, like
Did he grab his face mask?
so he didn't grab his face mask, but he grabs like the just the I don't know what you call it, but like just the fabric around his neck, right? Like it was clear, the
Oh
ball isn't
yeah.
there yet. Like,
I
but
feel like
that
PI across both levels has been something that's been missed a ton this year, and I
yeah,
know fans say that a lot, but there's been some pretty egregious stuff that's been missed this year. It's
no,
it's
that's why I don't
annoying,
want to make too big of a deal of that play. You know,
right?
like I like it's not the reason. It's just one like if you're cutting a blame pie of everything that happened in this game, it would get like a I don't know like a 3% slice or something like that. Like it did impact the game, but ASU was still down 2 touchdowns at that point. Like they still had to put the ball in the end zone, even if they'd gotten that call. So we talked about the defense. Here's a through 4 games, ASU is allowing 286 yards per game, only behind UW, Utah, BYU. Like again, some of that's opponent base, but we just talked about this. Like the defense just keeps the team in games, so that's good. And then,
A blame pie, huh?
yeah, just a division of blame. How's that? Like a pie chart.
I don't know. I don't know how tasty that sounds, Mark. A blame pie.
Terrible. It tastes like a loss. Uh,
Okay.
Not a loss is ASU shoring up its 2026 recruiting class from the state of Texas. They get Jake Fetty from El Paso, so that's good to see. He had other Big 12 offers. Game time for Kansas State set for Saturday, October 5th at 5 o'clock, which is a fantastic time for that game. A lot of people will be there. There's no late night excuse for that. So, yeah. And then we have some polls. ASU comes in 20th. ASU men's hockey comes in 20th in the useSCHO.com ice hockey poll. Denver is number one, and a bunch of other teams in the NCHC are in there. ASU women's volleyball is now 14th in the country, and they just swept TCU, so that's good to see. ASU is in the mix for five-star wing Tuande Yasufu, going to make his announcement on October 3rd. Again, Colton, we've talked about these recent really high-profile basketball players that are considering ASU, and the thought that is like, oh, it's cool that we're in the mix for this guy. We probably won't get him. All these other schools are after him. And then now it's like, oh, like ASU's in the mix for Yusufu. And it's like, I don't know. I just feel like we're going to get him.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way, man. I don't know what's been going on. But the precedent Bobby set with Joson and with Quintense, it's I don't know, man. You feel optimistic, especially when you're in a top three. So my thing with basketball, it's pretty short and sweet. Bobby has the players now. So he has to coach them. So we'll see if he can do that.
And we got the Big 12 schedule. It's weird because like I don't know how good these teams are going to be. Like I want to give a more nuanced take, but at BYU, I think like BYU is going to be pretty good. That's going to be really tough. But I like that you open with Colorado at home. I think Colorado is in line to most likely be the worst team in the Big 12. So getting them at home is nice. Then you just go to Kansas and then you host Baylor, UCF. It's going to be weird to see these teams. Iowa State, I love that. So you have a lot of road games to start off with. And then
against a lot of great programs.
Yeah, no, that's just pretty much what you see the whole time. Like I like that we get Colorado and UCF early. Those are expected to be two of the lower tier teams that we face. These are like in the middle. Like there's a lot of Tuesday, Wednesday games, which I like as well, and only one on the weekend. Because sometimes like when you're like going to the games, like, okay, I went on Friday. Now I got to go again on Sunday, or Thursday and Saturday. Right. So, it's just fun to see all these teams on the schedule. It's just starting to feel more real, even though we're already in the Big 12. But I'm just so excited for this schedule and going to these games,
Yeah, definitely, man. Basketball is going to be fun. The Cathedral of Mediocrity could rebrand this year. We'll see what happens.
The Cathedral of slightly above average.
Yeah, the Cathedral of peaking at the 7th-ranked team in the Big 12.
I would. Hey, you know what? That is not the worst thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, one more thing: the exhibition game between Duke and ASU will be televised. October 27th, it's still TBD of where it will be televised, but it will be on TV. I have never been so excited for a college basketball non-conference game. I mean, exhibition game, but that's going to be really fun to watch. Like to see Cooper Flag and the other guys on Duke, and then to see the ASU. Like, what if ASU is just like leading at halftime in that game, even?
That's dangerous, Mark. You can't do that to yourself.
I know, man. I know. Well, anyway, that wraps up our show. Thanks for listening. Kind of just to us putt around for an hour, just kind of go on random streams of thought. Colton, do you have anything to add?
That's what it's all about, man. That's why the people listen. We're not out at practice. We're not sitting in these meetings. We're just
giving you vibes.
We're just a couple slapdicks who have opinions. That's really the best way to. It's really the best way to sum this up.
The world would be a lot better place if more people kind of had that attitude who gave out opinions.
Yeah,
these are just my thoughts. Take them or leave them.
Yeah, I think there's too many slapdicks who have opinions, but I don't know, man. Ours are different.
Welcome to humanity. Yeah. All right. Well, We will probably convene sometime next week. We'll see. Oh, actually, oh man, we probably won't because I'm going to be out of town. So this will
That
be,
is
I'm going to be
that
at a,
is okay. We'll reconvene whenever we reconvene, and hopefully we have a 4-1 team to talk about.
well, let's give some Kansas, yeah, because now that I'm going to be out of town, so it's going to be impossible to record next week. So uh let's just give predictions for the Kansas game. What do you think happens score wise?
Ooh, okay. Without does Kansas play this week? I don't know off the top of
They
my
play
head.
TCU, yeah. I think they
Oh,
host.
that's right. Okay, okay.
This is just super out of the blue. We don't have any
Off the top of
idea.
my head, yeah, I'm thinking Kansas gets on track against TCU, and then I'm thinking there's a warm front in the desert, and Kansas State isn't ready for it. A heat wave at
Kansas,
Mountain America. Oh, Kansas, my bad. Did I say Kansas State?
you did.
My fault. There's a heat wave at Mountain America that Kansas isn't ready for, and we win that game. Give me 35-24.
Okay. Okay. I don't have a prediction on whether Kansas wins against TCU or not,
Yeah,
but
I
I
gave
do
you the
think
little
ASU.
bonus prediction.
Yeah, there you go. Regardless, I mean, I hope they win because I don't want, again, as I mentioned earlier, I think ASU wins this game 30-16.
Oh, that's a good one.
I think ASU is gonna get a few picks. They're due for some picks. Um, Kansas's quarterback Jalen Daniels has kind of struggled this year, and
Yeah,
again, the heat is going to be a big deal, man. Have to be looking into the Lawrence, weather because I mean it's not like it's cold in Kansas right now, but it's one thing to go from 75 to
to 100 degrees in October.
exactly. So should be fun. Yeah. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. Follow the College Huddle, and as always, go Sun Devils, baby.